Okay, welcome, Coach Lydon Ward. Best. Um, we're going over to the offensive side of the ball now, but with a sort of defensive sort of twist on, just trying to find out what you do and how you do it. So,
Yeah,
how are you?
yeah, not too bad. Thanks. I'm actually just getting over a cold that my 2-year-old decided to give me. So if I sound a little bit funny, that's why.
Oh,
But other than that, I'm all good.
that's not the worst thing you could catch at the moment.
I
So,
know, right? Yeah, yeah. So my lateral flow test says otherwise, so I'm okay.
oh, perfect. Great. So, if it's okay, we just jump straight into it. So,
Yeah,
I'm d- I'm going to ask a sort of quite a well, I think it's quite a complex question to start with. So, as a defensive coach, I quite like overloading one side. So, I'll sort of have four rushers on one side, even five, but then sort of not so many on the other side on obvious passing down. So, trying to make somebody redundant on the sort of on one side of the line. So, what sort of things do you do to counter that?
yeah. I mean, so I run a lot of slide protection. So for me, it's generally sort of gap accountability. So I want it to be nice and simple, but everyone just knows that they are responsible for X gap. So, for instance, if you've got because there's only so many ways to get to the quarterback. So, if, for instance, you've overloaded wider, so you've got sort of more on the edge, for instance, then from my point of view, they've got further distance to travel. So that either means they just need to get the ball out quicker, or potentially everyone moves out a space sort of thing, because they haven't got anything to do on the other side. So I think just keeping it simple like that, you can fall down the rabbit hole on pass protection and get far too complicated on it. But I think just sort of simple set rules really is the big thing, and it's just that kind of it's about communication as well, because if your line need to be telling you that like I've got one guy going, yeah, I've got two guys outside me, and the other guy going, yeah, I've not got much to do. So then you can look at like moving the pocket or and things like that to sort of counteract it. But yeah, I think it's if there's an overload one side, that means there's less people in another place. So it's just sort of looking for those trends, isn't it? So.
Yeah. Okay, so you would sort of the center would signal he's going to the overload side, and everyone would bump down a gap.
Yeah, I mean, maybe harder for the centre. Like it depends where everyone's lined up, but it's just more common to maybe get say like two off the edge, which makes the tackle's life more difficult because he has to pick one. So it's normally I would say more of a call for him to say like where everyone's going to shift out one, so he'd get the widest guy. But
Okay.
again, yeah, I say it's all angles and geometry, isn't it? So if the wider they are, the further distance they've got to travel. So you can kind of counteract it with a sort of quick release stuff as well. So
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, perfect. And then sort of over the years, I've grown to like stand-up edge rushers rather than like 2 point. From
yeah.
do you teach the tackles to adjust themselves slightly on that sort of thing?
So yeah, and I mean I'll come back to that actually because I think that's quite interesting. But I think from a tackle's point of view, it doesn't actually make a vast amount of difference because what they want to do is create space. So you always want to sort of take you to set, get back to your spot, make sure you've got space to work in. So whether in a 2 or a 3 point really doesn't affect that too much. It's I mean from a personal point of view, I'd probably say that's actually a little bit easier because you can already see your visual aiming points with the numbers and then the body and that sort of thing. So it's I would say it's generally harder when you've got somebody in a 3 point, especially if they can come out very low in a 3 point, to be able to maybe get underneath you or things like that as well, in a leverage situation. But yeah, two or three really, it should be a case of the tackle sort of getting depth to be able to work and create that separation on it.
Oh yeah.
But I have interest on the 2 versus 3 thing. What's made that change for you?
A few different things really. I mean, so firstly, and you wouldn't want to tell the players this, although they listen, but yeah, sometimes you've got especially at university level, you've got sort of smaller guys playing on the D line, and they like to be called linebackers. So you
Yeah,
just stand them up and say, "Yeah, you're a linebacker," but you stand on in this sort of 5 tech and in a
yeah,
2 point stance. So there's that. But also, I think when they're learning, they can get a quicker get off in that position because they haven't built the core strength to be in a 3 point. So they get in a 3 point, stand up, and then rush. So you just take away that little bit of learning for the. And I'm talking new. So yeah, what I always liked, if you get a really good athlete that turns up and that doesn't know football at all,
yeah,
actually an edge rusher is a pretty good position to put them in. It's not a huge amount to learn, and yeah, they can cause a lot of chaos. So yeah, start with a 2 point, teaching them 3 point in practice, and then get there. And I mean, we teach quite a low 3 points, 2 point. So yeah, whilst yeah, it's not stood up showing the sort of the chest. It's quite low, but it's just
yeah.
not a 3 point, so to speak. So
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, vision is going to be a big thing as well. You
yeah,
see a lot more what's going on. But no, I just wondered because like the simplistic way I looked at it was, well, you don't run the 300 meters in a 2 point stance. Oh, sorry, the 100 meters in a 2 point stance. So is there a difference in speed, Gail, from that side of things?
like you say, the vision. You're sort of seeing the ball, and I think it's just a common. Yeah, once someone's been in a 3 point stance for a while, but it's yeah, what sport do we play in the UK that's in a
Yeah,
3 point stance really? Yeah, apart from sprinting, I guess. But like, so they can watch the ball, they can get off the ball, and they can see the backfield a lot quicker. So just generally, and then yeah, we don't stop teaching them 3 point, and yeah, they learn it and they progress and they build up that core strength
yeah.
to be able to do that. But I mean, the disadvantage is they've got they've got to learn to, if there's a block down, they've got to step down and not rush up field and things
Yeah, I
like
was going to say in the run game side of things, the leverage must be a bit harder to sort of in
that.
terms
Yeah,
of setting it, especially if they're going inside of that guy. Um,
yeah, and that it's a balancing act, isn't it? It's just
yeah, I mean,
what
yeah.
can they do?
If there was something perfect, everyone would do it, wouldn't they?
Well,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Um, so so if we so as far as the front's concerned, if you see a shade on the centre, are you happy, or are you thinking, oh, he's in for a long day? Or
I mean, obviously, like nobody likes a shade on the snap in hand because you naturally got that little sort of disadvantage anyway. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I would always prefer an odd text over even text because even text, his heads up on you, can go either way. It's just I just find it more irritating because you've got to you just haven't got angles. You haven't got angles of leverage. Whereas when you've got the sort of your odd tech defensive lineman, it's like, oh, I've got a nice bit of leverage here. I've got some angles. I like my offensive lineman to move. So folding, crossing, those kind of things. All those sort of nice angles that are there for the taking. So yeah, I'm really happy if I see a forefront. Especially, which you don't see that much these days. But yeah, as everyone seems to love the free front because suppose it's easy. You don't need definitive body types, quite the same as well. But yeah, no, I'm actually quite happy if I see a shade. It makes a nice change from my point of view.
oh yeah, that's interesting. So it's because it's a shade and you don't get the cross across the face quite so much. So um,
Yeah,
yeah,
you kind of I mean, it's less likely if he's in a one tech, he's going to the opposite A.
yeah.
He's pretty much probably going to have that A gap there. So yeah, sometimes it can actually help you out because you've got more of an angle and you can work around that on your blocks and things like that. So
Yeah,
maybe less so in the pass game, for instance. Like if you've got a one tech on the snap in hand, that's going to be a little bit harder for the center. But then you can fix that through scheme and just get the center slide the other way, and the guard takes that A gap. So yeah, it's
yeah,
not too bad.
yeah. And I like that. I tend to be a shade type like shades, but it's interesting that we did a bit head up and slant to a gap, but they tend to get, which you'd be happy for, they tend to get washed down if they don't sort of get upfield nice and square. So
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, I think that would be my. I much prefer odd tech lineman to even tech lineman.
Okay. And do you do any, if you've got even fronts like a 2 or a 4, do you wait for them to react, or
I
because
mean,
I saw
yeah,
the sort of O-line talk on the Bafco O-line talk, and they were just saying, well, we just carry on if they're going to slant. So
yeah. I mean, in the run game, let's say you just got to be quicker because you haven't got the advantage of the leverage. So you've got to use your feet to put your body in the position to seal off that side, for instance, or where you wanted to go. Just makes it a little bit harder because you're dealing with a whole person, not half a person. But in the pass game, I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference because, again, you want to get that space, that separation, and then you're just reacting to what they're doing. And again, you should have depending on your scheme, for instance, like, so as I said, we do gap. So if he goes left, that's my problem. If he goes right, that's the other guy's problem. So it just sort of brings it down a little bit. But yeah, it just depends on your scheme, sort of thing.
all right. That's interesting. And so, just in regards to the run games,
Yeah.
and slanting, so I presume zone blocking, you're not worried if they slant because they're just slanting into the next lineman that's going across.
Yeah.
But
So
man blocking might be a bit harder.
yeah, potentially. I think generally if you're running man, then and double teaming a lot of the time, you sort of old fashioned double teaming, you'll probably just end up with two guys blocking one guy, which is what you don't want ideally. So that's why I'd rather do something like a fold or a cross or something like that to get some angles involved. And generally I have smaller linemen, so that works because they're never going to beat somebody blocking them head up because they're normally giving up £100 or whatever. So they have to. But thankfully they are quite smart and a little bit athletic. So that helps from that side of things. But I think it's a bit different in the run game side of things with that is that it can definitely make your life more difficult with
Man
it.
blocking.
Yeah, but zone blocking, it doesn't matter because if he slants this way, then whichever way you're zoning, that guy just takes him and the other guy keeps going, sort of thing. So you almost zone, find resistance, and then whoever doesn't have the resistance keeps going, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Massive simplification, but yeah.
No, I understand. Yeah, so yeah, in a way, you want them to slant out of the way, and then
if they go the other way, happy days. It's just made life a lot easier. So
yeah. All right, perfect. That was interesting. It piqued my interest when they were talking about that. So I was we've got the rule changes coming in with the blindside blocks, or
yeah.
they've come in, but we haven't been playing football. So, what about is that going to like a turnout block? Is that going to change the way you teach that? Or?
I don't think. I mean, it's been sort of, from my point of view, it's kind of been coming for a little while with almost blocking against the grain. We always used to call it. So it's been on the horizon, and I'm almost surprised a little bit it hasn't come on more. But it's there's not a huge amount of need for it really. Is that don't get me wrong, when I was playing it used to be fun, but it's by no means a safe thing or necessary. And most of the time when these kind of things happen, a lot of the time it's not actually going to benefit the play. So it's just somebody deciding to go after somebody. Very rarely does it actually do anything beneficial that couldn't be done through blocking it normally. But yeah, so it's still fine, if you've got a fullback or a lineman pulling or anything like that, to just head towards the guy, see his numbers, block him, everything like that. It's just when they don't see it coming.
Yeah.
And I mean the only instance you get a little bit like that is on something maybe like a trap or or a counter or something like that where they're rushing, but that's not a blindside block. That's just sort
No,
of more part of the
I think inside the
play.
tackle, the one I was thinking of, I used to see quite a lot, was when they do a rollout and the
Yeah,
tackle would go past the end, turn around, and then wait for the end. And it's
yeah,
still a legitimate block if you sort of just stood there with your arms crossed or something.
yeah.
The
You apparently
temptation,
still be in the way now,
yeah,
but no forcible contact, I think is the
yeah.
word on it.
So,
Yeah, I mean, some people call that an ambush as well.
oh, okay,
Yeah, I haven't seen it for a good while actually, because it's actually quite difficult to do. You know, you need to be quite athletic to pull it off timing wise, and if you get it wrong, then that guy just goes screaming into your QB, and it can be quite costly. Yeah, so I haven't actually seen it for a little while, but like I say it's not something I've done. I've been on some teams that have had it, but I said it's probably what 5-10 years ago.
right.
Um, and yeah, I think it's from my point of view, I say you could always see that was coming with the way stuff was being called and things like that. So it just wasn't worth it really.
Right. So yeah, it's not a huge concern for offensive line, more for running backs and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
the just on the rules, the wedge thing was quite interesting, which I think is an easy one for people to miss on the special teams bit. In that, you know, however many years ago, wasn't that many, but it went from you couldn't have more than two people together. Now you can't have two people together. So any more than one person, so everything is single blocking now on kick return, which I find interesting. Which is luckily I would just actually change the kick return that I run, and none of it's got any double blocking. So that's worked out quite nicely.
So I was
So
lucky enough to see a video from one of a BAFRA referee who was talking about that, and actually they were showing some NCAA film, and what gives it away to the officials is players still get together and sort of stick out their arms to
yeah,
like get this, and like they might be just getting the spacing rather than, but that's a red flag for the officials. They're going to call that every time. So we just
yeah.
need to teach our players not to stick their hand, even if it's to get away from me. We're not allowed to do that. They're going to be flagging
Well,
that.
everyone should be used to social distancing now, so you
Well,
know it should be naturally built in. We'll be
yeah,
fine.
exactly. So yeah, that's perfect. So uh, oh, ran out of question, but sort of as far as sort of keys,
Yeah, so I had a question for you actually, which was in from which I've never really actually asked this. I don't think too much from the defensive side of things, but it'd be interesting to know what, other than the obvious, which everyone talks about, which is hi hat, but what keys do you guys look for from an offensive line point of view? Because it's very very easy to sort of sometimes go by the stereotype of, oh well, we'll do that because they'll never notice. But yeah, it'd be interesting to actually see what things you look for.
so, yeah, when you warned me of this question, I was seriously tempted in talking about white knuckles and
Yeah,
annoy,
yeah,
annoying every coach in the UK and sort of like the movie thing, but I'm not going to. So really, our keys are sort of if it comes towards sort of goes away and things like that, we don't really have a massive amount. Yeah, the high hat, low hat is there, but a lot of defensive coaches, and especially I am as well, are moving to sort of flow, so
mm,
flow of the backfield. And then the offensive line is an under key. So once you've sort of seen the flow and it's not sort of direct or fast flow, so direct would be like a lead coming straight towards you, or fast flow would be outside. So if it's not one of those, then you look to the offensive line for under keys. So yeah, a counter, the backs are going in opposite directions, so you would look to the under keys. But defensive linemen don't really see the flow, so they
no,
would be like towards or away, and then just squeeze depending on their responsibility. So, and then you obviously get the pulls, and then you just sit in their hip pocket as far as the pulls are concerned.
yeah. I mean, it's like from my point of view, very other than a very small percentage, a pull will basically always take you to the ball. You know, there's very few situations where it's not. You
Yeah.
know, it's not. So that's an easy one. But yeah, no, I was just interested because it's it's interesting to see what, because I know a lot of people talk about always used to talk about hi hat, but
Yeah,
you watch half of the linemen in Britball show hi hat on a run play, so it's it's hard
that's
to
why I
know.
was sold on flow. So
Yeah,
yeah, it takes away the sort of the poor offensive line situation. I mean, and as people develop, they sort of start to be able to sort of see the triangle anyway. But yeah, as university coaches, we kind of get guys that are very new, and you might, if they're good athletes, you might want to play them straight away. So yeah, teach them flow and then let them develop into seeing the rest of the keys. So
yeah,
it's interesting when you say like the pullers take you to the ball. They do, but what defensively, what we tend to get is defenders getting too deep in the backfield. So they get a pull and they think, oh, I'm going to chase the running back down from depth. And then it opens up the seams like for cutbacks and that.
yeah.
So we just got to get 1 yard on the heel, when we say on the heels of the offensive line, and fight down there. But then I guess that's when you get your ambushes as well.
Yeah. Yeah, or a cocky quarterback that wants to chip somebody. That's
Yeah. So let's so things like boot action. Do you sort of disguise the blocking on that?
I used to, and it I got more and more in of a case of, well, just wanting to protect my quarterback. So I tend to sort of sell it more with like motion and the backfield movement, to sort of sell the flow the other way. Um, I've actually in the last couple of years have just sort of almost done a full line pull basically to the side that we're booting. Um, so everything backfield, say for instance, everything backfield wise is going to the left, but the whole line will actually all shift to the right to set up so that the QB's almost got a pocket outside the tackle box. And that for as a sort of a quick, easy to teach option has actually worked quite nicely, because even if they don't necessarily block the guy, that there's enough traffic to catch everything up and then just cause a bit of a mess. And if you suddenly got maybe one edge guy and then three linemen out in front of him, then it's generally quite a safe place to be for the quarterback. So yeah, that's something a bit different. I've tried the last couple of years and it seems to have worked quite well. And it's just nice and easy to teach as well. Instead of having to get your play side tackle to try and pull off the hardest block in football and hook somebody, it's just a case of no, just pull to the sideline and try and cut that guy off. That's all.
Right.
And it seems to work quite nicely. So.
And what makes the hooks so difficult?
Well,
Just
because you've got to essentially get, if that's my defender, you've got to get, and I'm this side of him, I've got to get all the way to the outside of him, turn my hips around to seal him in, against someone that's probably more athletic than me and quicker. So yeah, it's just, the angle's all off. There's no help there.
right.
You got to be quicker going sideways than somebody going forward. Which generally doesn't work. So
Yeah, and need to get a bit of depth as well to block them, I guess.
yeah,
Depth and width whilst the guy's getting off the ball.
yeah, yeah. While this more athletic guy is speeding past you. Yeah.
Right. So one step passing game. If you want to run a slant for 3rd and 1, you want to run a slant. How do you protect that?
Quickly. No, I mean I prefer quicker stuff, to be honest. This isn't an indictment of any of my O-line, but I prefer to start off with stuff that if the protection is bad, then he should still be able to get the ball off, and then work up from there, really. So yeah, I really like quick stuff. But I mean, again, we just go gap. So we'll generally have use the running back in protection. So between running back and the O-line, there's 6 gaps protected. So if you look at A, B, C gaps, those all 6 of those are done. And anything wider, has got a longer route to take, so they shouldn't get there in that time. And anything in the middle should be nicely sealed up. I always, and any of my players hearing this will cringe because they've heard this many times, but I say it's like bricks in a wall. Is that everyone is just nice and wide, nice and flat. Everyone is protecting their gap, so you don't turn your body. You don't turn your hips because that makes us skinny. I know that's ironic talking about offensive linemen, but it makes yourself skinny. And then I've got gaps either side of my brick in the wall. Or if you want to go one step further, anyone that's seen 300, the whole premise of the shield wall that they do is everyone's protecting the gap to the left, and it doesn't work if somebody doesn't do that. And it's the same thing really with pass protection. Everyone's got that responsibility for a set gap, covers the 6 gaps, and it also makes it really easy when you're looking at film as well to look at accountability and things like that and say, actually that was your responsibility on that. So just keep it simple, really.
And be kind to me because I'm a defensive coach, but do you worry about getting hands down? So do you block low for the defense?
Not specifically. I mean, if somebody does get their hands out, as far as I'm concerned, for my guys, it's a free shot in the midsection because they've left themselves exposed. But it's not something I don't try and cut people or anything like that. It's unless we've got some freakishly tall chap playing D end and he's just getting in the way. So we might adjust to it on there, but it's nothing specific that I'd go for. I hope it's especially with him coming upfield a little bit, you've got that window between the rush and the ball to get it in for a slant anyway.
Right, perfect. Right, one other question. Oh, so you went over to see Charles Brentley, or you went to the course?
I know he came over.
He came to.
Yeah, I think it was a lot longer than I think it was now. I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. But it was in Imperial College in London. It was the same weekend as one of the NFL games, and I think Gav Collins had a lot to do with him coming over, which is how I found out about it as well. But we had loads of coaches from Europe came over as well, and quite a few from the UK. But it was just a whole weekend of so it was all the Friday, all the Saturday of just talking about his Charles Bentley stuff, which at the time, obviously it's a lot more popular now, but at the time it was just completely mind blowing. It was, at that time I'd been doing O-line for about 10 years, and it was almost like everything I knew just completely got flipped on its head, and it just made so much sense. So I became a believer from that point, and it was sort of. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think with any of these things, there's stuff that is maybe like too high level for what we do, and I've taken bits of it and just sort of added to the bits that I have over the years. And you've always got to be a little bit sort of reticent that at the end of the day, these people are trying to make money from it. So, I haven't gone as far as to buy all the fancy toys, as cool as they are, and that sort of thing. But the principles I think are really there, and that's, I suppose, I almost teach like a diet version of it, because I think if you went into the full ins and outs, like Gav does, for instance, I just wouldn't have enough time. It's almost like a toned down version of the thing. But no, I think it just makes sense. It's a lot of it is just around movement and being efficient as well. So it's things like the amount of times I got taught to have a stance with both your feet facing forward, but actually that's going to make you less efficient in movement, less powerful, and more likely to get knee and ankle injuries, which nobody unless somebody tells you and explains it to you, you just don't know those kind of things.
So how do you want your feet then?
So the easiest thing to say is like 12 and 10, or 12 and 2, whichever you want to. So you've got 1 foot facing forwards, 1 foot out, and then your hips will be going that way. So then you push your backside pocket forward, so then your hips will line up. But that will your hips will line up with the line of scrimmage. So then you'll engage your adductors, and just means that you're a lot, again, you're a lot more powerful and a lot more stable as well. I think the thing I like about the Charles Bentley stuff, and especially it's the hand thing, which I think I might talk to you about at the level 2. I think the last time there was a real level 2 was just the difference between that and that with your hand. And what I like about that is it's a really good visual thing. So I will generally get the smallest guy on my team and go, right, come here, put your hand up, and I will push against your hand with your thumb up and give me as much resistance as you can. And generally, maybe one hand, and I'll be able to push them backwards. So, right, do the same thing, but turn your thumb out and put your elbow into your rib cage. Do exactly the same thing. And I'll put one hand's worth of my weight on, 2 hands worth of my weight on. I'll put my whole weight on that one hand, which is a lot. And just have this. And so, as a visual, they can say, well, that smallest guy on the team just blocked somebody my size with one hand. Imagine what he could do with 2. So I think that's one of the biggest things I think is what I like about it is that it all, once you show it, it all makes sense, and you can feel the difference.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, you talking about blocking and how it's changing it sounds exactly like me talking about tackling and how it's changing. It's just like those subtle changes, and we just got to keep an open mind and pick up those subtle little points and just move on with it. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's one of my biggest bugbears, the people that go like, and you must come across them as well. They're like, oh yeah, I played a coach in the 80s, so now I know everything about football. So, well, no, like it's it literally changes every. What I've learned in the last 5 years is massive. Like it's you just invest in yourself, don't you? And I know you're very high on that as well. It's just I always just like talking to football, and if it always comes down to the why for me, and again, there's going to be some more cringes because people know I say this a lot, but if someone can say to me, right, well, this is why I do it and it's better because of this, I'm like, cool, that's great. I'm fine with that. But if someone just says, oh, you should do this, and they can't tell me why, then I won't do it. And I say the same thing to my players. I'm like, if I'm doing something throughout the whole session, scheme, whatever, if I can't tell you why I'm doing it, I shouldn't be doing it. So ask me. And then just get them to sort of spot check everything every time we do something. It's like, coach, why are we doing this? Okay, well, we're doing this because of this, and this. If I can't do that, then I probably shouldn't have it on my playbook or on my scheme or anything like that. So
definitely, and just look at things and think, can it be slightly better? And then,
Oh yeah.
So
I was just say that's what I love about the coaching staff I've got at the moment at the Demons and to be fair at the Wyverns now as well, is that there's a really great atmosphere of we love challenging each other, and I think nowadays everyone is very caught up in if you go, well, why are you doing that? They take it as a challenge, and they sort of put their back up and defenses come up and everything like that, and it's like, well, no, I'm not being a dick about it. I just want to know, like, why is that better than what I've been doing? And I really love that environment. Is that we just go, well, is this as good as we can be doing it? And I think that's a lot of that's come onto our special teams side of things. So we do stuff that nobody else does on special teams because we spent a lot of time going, well, is this as good as it could be? Could we be doing something else? Could we be doing something like a bit funky? And so it's been really good fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if sometimes it internally gets you back up, but you just got to think, actually, we want to improve. We need to ask these questions.
Yeah, you just take the ego out of it. Like I say, it's not I think we're all quite good on that point. Is that it's not somebody saying that's rubbish. It's going, well, why are we doing this? Like, I want to find out. Like, I want to understand what we're doing as a team, and then somebody else might have a completely different point on it, and you're like, actually, that's I'd never even thought about it that way. And
sometimes there's 2 correct ways. There's not always right and wrong.
No, for sure.
Well, thank you, Lydon. I appreciate your time, and I'll get this up as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Always happy to talk football. I thought it'd be a slightly interesting one for you.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Cheers, Simon. Thank you.
Bye.